The Seattle Seahawks are defending Super Bowl champions, sitting at number 1 in ESPN's power rankings, and somehow they're still not getting the respect they deserve in Week 4 betting lines. Today, we're breaking down NFL Week 4 predictions, specifically how injuries are moving lines by unprecedented amounts, which teams the analytics say are being undervalued, and where the smart money is actually going. By the end of this episode, you'll know exactly which games to watch and why the data tells a completely different story than the headlines. Let me bring in someone who's been tracking these trends all season. What's the biggest thing people are missing about Week 4?
The injury impact is absolutely wild this year. According to the latest betting analysis, key QB injuries are moving lines by an average of 4.2 points. That's massive.
4.2 points? That's like the difference between a close game and a blowout.
Exactly. And when you look at the current injury report, we've got some serious question marks. Joe Burrow's wrist is questionable, Dak Prescott's shoulder is doubtful, and Nick Bosa is straight up out with a hip flexor.
So we're not just talking about backup players here. These are franchise guys.
Right, and it gets even more interesting when you dig into the performance data. Indianapolis has the highest offensive EPA per play at 0.22, but they're facing a Rams defense that just got significantly better.
Wait, how did the Rams get better? I thought they were struggling.
They made a huge move in the offseason, traded for Trent McDuffie from Kansas City. ESPN's power rankings have them at number 2 specifically because they fixed their cornerback problem.
That's actually brilliant. They lost the NFC Championship to Seattle partly because of secondary issues, so they went out and got one of the best corners in the league.
And it shows in their defensive numbers. But here's what's really fascinating. Buffalo has a 0.2 EPA per play on offense, and they're facing New Orleans, who just gave up 44 points to Seattle.
So Buffalo should absolutely demolish them, right?
The analytics say yes, but the betting line has Buffalo favored by 15 points. That's a massive spread in the NFL.
15 points? That's basically saying New Orleans has no chance.
Which brings us to one of the key trends this season. Home favorites are 8-4 against the spread in primetime games. That's a significant edge.
So, if you're betting primetime games, you want the home team?
The data suggests that, yeah. But there's another factor. Cold weather games are trending under 65% of the time this season.
That makes sense. Cold weather usually means lower scoring, more conservative play calling.
Exactly. And when you look at some of the specific matchups, the trends get really interesting. Take the Steelers. They're allowing over 3 points per touch to tight ends.
3 points per touch? That's terrible defense.
Hunter Henry had a field day against them last week, so if you're looking at their Week 4 matchup, any team with a decent tight end should exploit that.
What about Miami? I saw they're allowing the most points to quarterbacks.
0.78 points per touch to QBs, which is the worst in the league. They're facing the Jets, so whether it's Tyrod Taylor or Justin Fields, that quarterback should have a huge game.
And that probably helps Garrett Wilson too, right?
Absolutely. When the quarterback plays well, the receivers benefit. It's one of those obvious connections that the betting public sometimes misses.
Speaking of things the public misses, what's happening with Cincinnati? I heard they're struggling.
They've fallen to the lowest EPA per play in the league. It was tough to watch in Week 3, and they're not getting any help facing Denver's solid defense.
So even with Burrow potentially playing through that wrist injury, they're still in trouble?
The numbers suggest yes. And here's something interesting. The Ravens can't stop the run at all. They're allowing 1.2 points per touch to running backs.
1.2 points per touch? That's like giving up a first down every time someone hands the ball off.
Pretty much. So any team with a decent ground game should attack them there. It's one of those exploitable weaknesses that smart bettors are definitely noticing.
Now, I'm curious about the rookie situation. Fernando Mendoza went number 1 to the Raiders. Is he actually going to play?
That's one of the 5 hot QB battles the NFL is tracking this season. The question isn't if Mendoza will start, but when.
And the Raiders are facing Chicago, who just beat Dallas 31-14. That's not exactly an easy debut.
Right, and according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal analysis, the Raiders just aren't a very good team right now. New coaches, new systems, it takes time to gel.
So Chicago should win that one pretty easily?
The prediction is Bears 24, Raiders 21. Caleb Williams should have a big game against what they're calling one of the NFL's most porous pass defenses.
That's actually a closer game than I would have expected, given what you just said about the Raiders.
NFL games are weird like that. Even bad teams can keep it close, especially at home. But the trend favors Chicago coming off that momentum.
What about that international game in Dublin, Vikings versus Steelers?
That's fascinating because both teams are 2-1, but the Vikings have covered 2 of 3 games while Pittsburgh has only covered 1. The line has Minnesota favored by 2.5.
And they're playing at like 6:30 in the morning, our time, right?
Yeah, which adds this whole weird factor. But the key matchup is Minnesota's defense allowing only 18.7 points per game versus Pittsburgh giving up 25.7.
So defense wins this one?
The prediction is Vikings 21, Steelers 17. Low scoring, tight game decided by defense. Classic international series matchup.
Now, here's something that caught my attention. Eagles versus Buccaneers. Both teams are 3-0.
It's the only matchup of undefeated teams this week. Tampa Bay has some confidence because they've won and covered the last 2 meetings with Philadelphia at home.
And the Bucs haven't turned the ball over yet this season, right?
0 turnovers through 3 games, which is incredible. Plus, Jalen Hurts is 1-3 against Tampa Bay historically, including a playoff loss.
So even though Philadelphia is favored, Tampa Bay might be the better bet?
The prediction is Buccaneers 23, Eagles 21. The line gives Tampa Bay value, and their ball security has been phenomenal.
That would be a huge upset if Tampa Bay wins outright.
Not really an upset when you look at the data. Sometimes the betting public gets caught up in narratives instead of numbers.
Speaking of narratives, what's the deal with Seattle? They're defending champions, but people still seem skeptical.
They're allowing the second feast points per game and just destroyed New Orleans 44-13. Their defense looks elite under Mike McDonald.
But they're playing Arizona, who lost James Conner for the season. That should be an easy win.
Seattle's defense is allowing just 90 rushing yards per game. Trey Benson filling in for Connor is going to have a really tough time.
So Seattle covers easily?
The prediction is Seahawks 24, Cardinals 20. Closer than you'd think, but Seattle's defense should control the game.
You know what's interesting about all these predictions? The margins are pretty small. No one's expecting blowouts except maybe that Bills-Saints game.
That's actually typical for week 4. Teams are starting to figure each other out, injuries are piling up, and the talent gap isn't as wide as people think.
Which makes the betting more interesting, right? Closer games mean more opportunities.
Exactly. And when you factor in those injury impacts moving lines by 4.2 points on average, there's real value if you're paying attention to the right information.
So what should people be watching for as the week progresses?
Injury reports, obviously, but also weather forecasts for those cold weather unders, and any line movement that suggests sharp money is coming in.
And if someone just wants to watch good football, what's the best game?
Eagles-Bucks for the undefeated matchup, or that Dublin game if you're up early. Both should be competitive and well played.
All right, so when you step back from all these numbers and trends, what's the big picture for week 4?
Injuries matter more than ever, defense is still king, and the betting public is sleeping on some really obvious trends. If you're paying attention to EPA numbers and injury impacts, you have a real edge.
And for people who just love football, we're getting some genuinely compelling matchups. The defending champions trying to prove they're still elite, undefeated teams clashing, rookies potentially making debuts.
Plus, all those exploitable defensive weaknesses we talked about. This is the week where smart preparation really pays off, whether you're betting or just trying to understand what you're watching.
Here's what I want you to do. Pick one stat we mentioned today